This is not good lighting.
Hello. Oh. Hello. Sorry about that. So this is my wife. I'm gonna do a quick tutorial. I'm not really happy with the stream that I did yesterday. Um, with uh, doing the tutorial on my Dragon Warrior Tracker app. I'm going to redo it, and I'm going to try to make it this one a little bit faster and more concise. So, yeah, I'm gonna not to go through every detail of it like I did yesterday. I'm gonna go more with a quick overview of the application. And let me turn the volume down just a touch more. That should be good. Okay. So you can get the app from this link. It's a GitHub link. The app is done under the MIT license, so it is open source, can be used for most purposes. There is on the website there is a wiki that explains how to use it and has step-by-step functions for most of the functionality. I've actually added a few things since I made this wiki, so some of the stuff's not pertinent anymore, but it does cover most of it, most of the tracker functions. The um, other items here are um, uh, when you go to download. This kind of explains it. It does require Windows. It does not work, or at least I don't support it working in Linux or Mac-based operating systems. Um, it was built for Windows. It does require .NET 3.5. You might be able to get it to work with Wine or something like that, but I haven't gotten anywhere as far as I haven't done any work in that direction. And for usage, it points you to the wiki, which I already showed. To download it, you just need to go to the Releases tab and pull the latest version. Um, and when it downloads, it'll just download a zip file. Actually, there's several versions. The most common one that you would want to use would be to download the zip file, and then you just decompress that zip file, and you'll get a set of files, and all you have to do is run it from the executable. I already have it running here. So this is what it looks like. This is the display. This is the settings window. The display is for streaming purposes. It is to show information that you might want to show on your stream. You can hide and show any portions of this. You can set colors, you can set fonts. I'll go over each of those quickly. Um, and the wiki goes over all of that in detail. There's only a few things that have changed, and I'll point those out as I go through this. Um, in the main window, you have a start timer that switches to a pause timer when the timer is running. A reset timer that resets the clock. Your stats that you can input, you can input these at the beginning and on each level. Quick information is if you start this, um, oh, you have the reset buttons here to reset the tracker, reset the stats, reset all. Those reset visual things. So the tracker resets this portion, which is the item tracker. Reset stats resets the stats section and the calculations that are based on those. And the reset timer resets the timer back to 0, and reset all just resets all three of those functions. I'm going to reset the stats just to show you one quick thing about when you're inputting the stats. The first time that you input any stats, it will pop if you have any of these left to 0 because this is standard. The functionality is built for putting in your initial stats when you first start out, um, and you shouldn't have any zeros there. It is possible, I guess. I don't actually. I shouldn't say that. I don't know if it's possible to have zeros. That's why I only throw a warning message that lets you ignore it if you did get a zero. Otherwise, it doesn't save those and it pops it back because it assumes that those wrong. After the first set of stats are put in, then you can't have zeros. Those are common, so from then on it accepts zeros to be input there. To start the timer, you can either press this button here or you can press the star on your keyboard. That anytime that this application is open, it will take over the star button on your keyboard. So just know that if you have the application open in the background, the star is starting and stopping the timer. The delete key will reset the timer, and it is the same way. The delete key, it will be disabled for all other functionality for now. Those are the two keys that I've chosen to make the hotkeys for those two functions, and I've made them so that this window doesn't have to have focus in order for those two buttons to be utilized to start and stop the timer and to reset it. So that's the main portion of it. The timer settings tab on here. This was where you can set the font, the text color, the font size, and how many decimal places your timer has. And you can also set the timer to a specific time. So when I set it to 1:30 and hit the set timer, it'll set it to that. Then if I start the timer, and then if I fill from the current time, it'll pull this information into these. Everything on this application should save and reload whenever you close the application by default. You shouldn't have to do anything manually to do that. All settings are saved as they're being set. The next tab here is the header settings. These two lines here are the headers. I have these and so that you can have something to display, just some text that you might want displayed on your stream. Let me do land and seed, something like that, or whatever you want up there. Within each of those sections, you can enable or disable that section. You can also set the font color, and the font size independently. And then each of these sections has a match button, which sets it to match a specific thing. So if I click the match button here, it would set this to match the functionality of the timer. It does not adjust the font size, but it does do the font and the color to match the timer in this case. This one, when you click it, let me change this to some other color. Um, when you click it, it'll match the header 1 when you click this button for header 2. And it's just a quick way to make one match the other. Um, that's the primary function of this. That's pretty self-explanatory. One thing I want to go back to here is the timer settings. There's the background color. This is the background color for the form, and that controls the whole form, and it's just a legacy thing that got left over that it ended up in the timer settings menu. I'll probably move it out at some point, but it hasn't been a high priority, so it hasn't actually happened yet. Um, Extras menu. This is where a lot of functionality comes into play for setting this thing up. The main functionality here is you can turn on, hide, and or make visible each of the sections on the tracker display. So if you're only wanting to do the item tracker, um, oh, I'm sorry. The only thing that isn't controlled with that is these two headers. But if you're just wanting the item tracker, you can disable all of those, shrink it down, and then you've just got the item tracker. If you want the calculations on there too, then you can pop that up. And I'll go over the specific items for some of the things on the tracker display here in a second. But so you can turn them all off, or you can configure them in any way that you like. I'm turning them all back on because here in a minute I'm going to go through how each of the calculations work and the different sections. You can also set a background image. This application comes with some background images that I just made myself. I just quickly made up some because it was feedback from one of my users that they thought that it should have something other than just a flat background color. That there should be some a way to set an image there, so I just made some quick ones up to put some texture behind the thing, the form. Then there's the other labels function here, which sets the labels basically in this section. The parts that don't have a white background in this section, it sets the fonts and the colors for those. So I will say that the form does not adjust to your settings here. So you kind of have to adjust your settings to match the layout of the form a little bit. And then the color. Alright, so very quickly you can do that. You can also set them to match the timer. That Dragon Warrior font does not look very good on those because it's so wide. Eventually I might make these so that you can adjust the font size or something like that. Problem is that adds a lot of dynamic sizing to the form, which has to be accounted for, and I just haven't implemented the logic for that. All right, the last thing that is here in the setting, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped this. There's also this show maps page. This adds another form, and it actually popped up on my other window, but, or on my other screen. It shows this window here that has maps for most of the dungeons and the vanilla map with coordinates on it. So with each one of these you have several selections here. You can hit the zoom button. What that does is if it's enabled, it fits the image to the screen size. If it's not enabled, then it goes to its default size. There is currently a bug in the Sherlock map, for some reason, some of these standard maps, where if you do not have the zoom enabled and you scroll, it's not updating properly. I need to figure out how to do that or what's causing it so I can get rid of that. But for now, you do have to use the zoom in some of these. And then for each of these cave maps, there's also a route button. What that does is it shows my routing for different things in the map. If you run the Dragon Warrior Randomizer, you probably quickly understand what the different routes are for. In the Charlock situation, the red goes to the armory, the yellow goes to the vanilla sword location, and in the swamp, the yellow goes to the spike tile and red goes to the princess. The and then these are always I've designed this to show the route that I use when I don't have a torch. So whenever I'm trying to find my way in the dark, to how I would get around. It's not necessarily the most optimum way. It may not be the way that everybody goes. It just happens to be the way that I tend to go. Um, on the vanilla maps, I'm gonna turn the zoom off here. For some reason, these actually scroll properly. Again, I need to figure out why. I just haven't gotten around to that yet. But it shows the coordinates of major items on the map. Basically, anything that's real distinguishable on the map should have coordinates on this map. And then the vanilla coordinates 2 map just has a grid with all the coordinate points laid out. Um, and that is basically the maps function. Alright, the last thing I want to show is in the admin tab. There is a reset to factory button. In order to enable it, you do have to press the enable button. And then when you hit the reset to factory, it resets the form to the format that um, the way that this thing would normally be. Oh, that's why. Um, it resets everything to the default settings for everything. And in this case, it actually clears out these 2 text fields, and that's why those don't show up. They are there, that's just not there. But so that button is just if you've made some kind of a setting issue that you can't figure out how to fix, it will reset that. Um, the last thing that I want to explain before I get to this form is the fonts and the images. Um, for the fonts, inside your downloaded folder, there will be a fonts folder. Any font that you place in that folder, and I include this Dragon Warrior one with the license. This one is provided as for anybody's use, as long as I include the license information. So I went ahead and did this. But you can include a true type font in this folder, and the application will pick it up whenever the application starts up. If it's in the .ttf file extension format. And whenever it does that, it loads the fonts for your system installed fonts first, and then it'll load any fonts in that folder and put it at the end of each of the fonts folders. There's that. And then the background image, you can pick any image from your computer and it should work, as long as it's in the BMP, JPG, or PNG format. All right. Oh, and a quick shout out, Game Boy F9 and Ryushin made the 2 vanilla maps that I use here. I did ask them both for permission, and they did give it for me to include that in this application. All right, now real quick, the tracker display. The tracker display should adjust to most things as you resize it. It'll just lay out vertically a little bit, fixes. So if you want to adjust it until it's right. If you do notice that with your font sizes, let's go with a bigger timers font, um, that it might overlap another section. Um, actually, oh, I'm sorry. The timer font has to just be less than that because it just fills the space that it has. It would be the headers being too big. That would be a problem. That they might overlap. And then if you made this too small, it's going to overlap those, and you can just expand the size until it's uncovered. Um, that's that simple. All right. So header one, header two, timer, pretty understandable. The tracker, the item tracker, um, each of these items just lights up when you click them. I suggest that whenever if you're streaming this form, that you have your streaming application not pick up your mouse cursor when it's in this window, and your viewers will just see the things light up as you click them. For the uh, armor, weapons, and shields, you just click them and they'll rotate through, and they'll also do a tooltip to tell you um, the attack power that each item gives you. And you'll notice down here the attack power as you click those uh, increases for whatever the item is selected. It basically it sets the attack power and the defense to whatever the item provides. That is a bug I will probably be fixing today, and so there will probably be a 0.107 version that apparently I forgot to calculate the shields in with the defense. That's an easy fix. I'll get that taken care of pretty quickly. Um, Dragon Scale increases the defense. The Fighter's Ring increases the attack power. Oh, if these aren't checked. Um, yeah, so, yeah, there you go. What then this section, what it does is it keeps track of your current stats and then your last level stats. The last level stats are based upon the last set of inputs that you filled in here. And real quick with this input, the enter key actually cycles to the next input, and then in the last one it enters the value. So that allows you to just use the number pad, and it allows you to keep one hand on your game controller while you use the other hand to use your number pad to do this functionality if you want. You can also just type in here and tab through, or however you feel most comfortable with it. But what this will do is it keeps track of the last set of values you entered, and then it keeps a cumulative total for your stats, and then it adds or does the calculations to figure out the attack power and the defense based upon the stat that you have plus the item that you have selected that you currently have equipped. That's all there is really to say about that. This is the Dragon Lord calculation section. In the extras, I think I call it the calculation view. So what this does is it calculates, on average, with your current attack power and MP, how many average attacks it would take to kill the Dragon Lord with its average health, and how many heal mores you currently have. It also calculates how many attacks it would take if you had the Death Necklace, and how much HP you would have if you were to equip the Death Necklace at your current HP value. If you're less than 100 attack power, you would do 1 damage to the Dragon Lord each time, but I just put in a value in there. And it would be 1 damage if you hit. Most of the time you would probably get 0 damage or miss, but so it's just NA on there. There's also these 2 checkboxes, Erdrick's Sword and Fighter's Ring. What they do is they adjust these numbers to the point that as if you had Erdrick's Sword or the Fighter's Ring. So if you click that, you see the attack power goes up. Right now my attack power is 4, and Airdrix Sword is 40? Yeah, 40. So it should go up by... Oh, yeah. It, so, I'm sorry, the attack power for this is 4, and then my strength is 4, so that's 8. Oh, and the fighter's ring. Sorry. Um, so 8 to 10, and then if I added this, it would be 40 minus 6 more, so 36 more. That's correct. All right. So it shows that it's as if it's calculating as if it was 46. And if it's the fighter's ring, it would also adjust that if this was not selected. Now you see that it's not selected. It adjusts it as if you had that item instead of the current item that you have selected. But and you'll see here if I add 50 power, then we start seeing that with the death necklace, I actually have a chance to kill the uh, the Dragon Lord. And if you notice, my attack power is just below 96. The death necklace and randomizer gives you 10 attack power, so that would bring it up slightly above 100, which will actually give me a chance to kill it. And then it starts, as I get higher attack power, it starts to become more possible. Let me add 30 more. And then you see that it's a reasonable amount of attacks. With the death necklace, it's a couple less attacks, but my HP is only 12, so the death necklace reduces your maximum HP by 25%, or it gives you 75% of your current maximum HP available to you. Then that pretty much explains that section of it. The last section on this is the run and back attack chances. This shows the chance that you have to run away from this enemy, and the chance that this enemy will back attack you with your current agility value. They're the same calculation, they're just the coin is flipped one way or the other depending on which calculation the system is doing. The ones that I've calculated are the Armored Knight, the Red Dragon, Dragon Lord 1, and the Dragon Lord 2. The reason for that is Armored Knight and Red Dragon are the two enemies that you're most worried about when you do your dive for trying to run away from, because you're going to try to run from these enemies to save as much resources as possible when you get to the Dragon Lord. And then you're worried about the Dragon Lord back attacking you, because each time it back attacks you, you get one fewer chance to attack it, because the way that the logic of the fight goes, you basically are attacking every other time that it attacks, and you're healing yourself on the opposite increments of those. So it just tells you your chances of getting through without taking that extra hit, which would utilize one of your heal mores to heal from it. And that's pretty much what the tracker does. It handles these functionalities. I think that it does them quite well. There's one thing that it could do a little bit better, other than the bug that I found where it's not taking the shield into account, and that is the input of these values. It would be great if this window did not have to have focus to input those values. The problem is if I programmed all of the number keys to be hotkeys, then anytime this application was open, it would kill your ability to use those number keys for any other purpose. So I prefer not to do that. And I guess that is my explanation. There was one last thing. Oh, I just wanted to show you an example of, and I'm actually running this not from the download, and I'm running it from my development system. But I just wanted to show you that when you close it down, and it's going to pop up on another window here, and you start it back up, it it keeps everything exactly the way that you had it before you closed it down. That's all I wanted to show. So please utilize the tracker app as you see fit. If it's something you're interested in, please hit us up with a like and a follow, and we appreciate the time and that you take to consider us and the viewership that you provide. That is all for me for tonight, and I again thank you for your time.